Do you remember your first shooter? Your first FPS? I remember playing Unreal Tournament at a place called Wizards of the Coast at my local mall. I was probably around 10 years old. For perspective, I'm 29 years old now. That's almost 20 years of first-person shooter experience. As I grew over the years, from that first experience of Unreal Tournament in 1999, I carried over habits into each and every next first-person shooter. Oh, turn that corner, act like you run away, but wait for him to pass you, then shoot him in the back. Lose aim, just ADS again to get accurate. Shoot plus grenade equals win. These are all very common themes in first-person shooters today. With each of these, let's say, very blanket statements of advice, in theory, you can improve in almost every new shooter in 2018. Now, I'm not saying that these blanket statements of advice will make you god tier. This is just general advice and experience you take into each and every new first-person shooter. Well, as time moves on, some shooters become iconic for their fresh and new mechanics as well as execution of staying true to the FPS genre. When I say iconic, I'm not disregarding your favorite first-person shooter, no, I'm more talking from a personal preference. Obviously, we have the Halo 2s, which gained mass popularity and really put a stamp on how powerful a first-person shooter can be to the mass market. When I'm talking about our mechanics, something that pushes the envelope on how people will look at the genre differently going forward. One early game that comes to mind is Battlefield Bad Company 2. Being able to destroy an entire bunker, airbomb a building, level a whole map, etc. All I'm getting at least for me, is that the game made me throw everything I knew about first-person shooters up until that point out the window. I was an infant. I was a baby, once again learning like I had never played the genre before. Obviously the controls carried over, but I'm talking about tactics and experience, was save for a few instances useless in this game. I mean, the game is so popular, literally YouTubers are still making videos about how good it is in 2018. All I'm getting at, first-person shooters that really changed the genre are few and far between. As I was trying to figure out what game I should do for my first review, I was looking at the calendar of releases and thinking maybe Spider-Man. I mean, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, so there's a chance I'll still do the review, but I figured I should really do the review on the game that brought me out to the public eye. That game is Rainbow Six Siege. Since my love for Battlefield Bad Company 2, I have never felt like a first-person shooter has really changed the actual real mechanics, environment, and tactics of the first-person shooter genre. Let me get this out of the way. Rainbow Six is not an easy game. Let me repeat that this game is not easy. You looking for a good time, shoot some shit, kick back with the boys while watching Netflix? Turn around now. This is not that game. This is not that game at all. At least not for 50 or 60 hours or so. No, this game will turn you back into a baby. This game will make you throw everything you thought you knew about first-person shooters out the window. Looking through YouTube, I tried to find a current review of Rainbow Six Siege. Most of the reviews are a little bit older, and they talk about how the game is improved and how it's back, but regardless, all the reviews were a nice representation of what you'd be getting when you buy the game. This review is more from a perspective of a player who was just introduced into Rainbow Six Siege in year 3. I was never around for anything before then. Up until this point, I have over 200 hours in the game and probably 67 hours in Parabellum alone. So, my reviews will sort of break down like movies into my own personal 5-act story. We have the introduction, we have the good parts, we have the great parts, we have the disappointing parts, and then we have the final verdict. 5 acts. That is my review formula. That is how I will be doing and conducting my own reviews. Please skip to the time markers as we have just gotten through the production of my review. Okay, Siege is a 5v5 tactical shooter with different operators, heroes, classes, whatever you want to call them. Each come with their own specific gadgets which make them unique in their own way. With the right combination of operators, you open up the realm of tactics not seen in many first-person shooters. I don't want to spend too much time on general gameplay because there's frankly many places you can find which weapon is the best, or best tactics to use, or top 10 beginning tip videos. Just know that this game is very tactical and you should approach it as so. As I said before, this game is not easy. Graphics are great. I am playing on a PS4 Pro, and they recently introduced a 4K patch and it looks great, but I'm just a console peasant, so I'm pretty sure your beefed up Power Ranger rigs will make sure it looks amazing. Sound, oh my god, the sound is amazing. this game made me invest in a good headset. Like literally, I went out and bought a headset so I could hear footsteps better in this game. That is how great the sound is. As games like Fortnite require quick reflexes in building and jump sniping, Rainbow Six requires patience and communication to be successful. Now I know what you're thinking. I don't have a 5-man stack squad every night in order to play. You actually don't need a 5-man squad to have fun in this game. Sure, it helps in rank play, but as a starting player, I would suggest everyone goes into this game solo for a good 20 hours or so you can really take in all the mechanics without people shouting them at you. I mean, seriously, discover the mechanics. That's the way the game is supposed to be played. And that's quite a challenge that you don't see many video games give players. Let's talk about the Rainbow Six Siege movement. This game, let me tell you, has some of the most dedicated fans across the world. We're talking pro leagues, challenger leagues, weekly mid-season streams of competing pros across the world, cosplayers, YouTubers, Twitch streamers, anything you name it. The people that play this game and stick with it are some of the best fans I've ever seen. The energy surrounding the pro league tournaments is something I would compare to watching an NFL football game. Now, I know obviously that has nothing to do with the actual game itself. I'm more talking about from a support standpoint that this game will have over 100 operators over a 10-year period. For context, including the release of Grim Sky, there are 42 operators currently in the game. That is an insane amount of depth to a single first-person shooter already. If you're going to throw in 60 more operators into this mix, this game will have the depth of an RPG. Specific team compositions will play a big role going forward. As a tank, DPS, and healer in RPG terms, think in R6 terms, Rainbow Six, R6, anchor, fragger, support. The closest game I believe you can compare this to is Overwatch. I recently played some Overwatch, and some things such as role, team composition, and communication are key, but when you take a look deeper at the core mechanics, you realize that neither of these games are close, and Rainbow Six is in a league of its own. Take this scenario. You're coming up on an objective and around the corner, boom, Sniper Fairy comes out from the top of the building, and now you are dead. You now have to respawn and look for that person again and make sure you do not die a second time. Well, in Rainbow Six, once you're dead, you are dead. No respawn until the next round, which can make early mistakes unforgiving. Regardless of what your stance is on respawns, it doesn't change the fact that Rainbow Six teaches you mistakes are punishable early and often. I've never had a harder time not dying in Rainbow Six Siege. Let me repeat this. This game is not easy. This game is so different. I'm basically a handicap to my team until I get better at the game itself. It's not about point and shoot at a person, which is what most games come down to. It's about holding and pushing, distraction versus reaction, communication and execution. Think about cover, angles, destructible walls. What I'm getting at here, after learning the ins and outs of Rainbow Six Siege, it made me fall back in love with first-person shooters. Not since Bad Company 2 have I ever felt like anything ever again was new and fresh. Iconic games like Rainbow Six take skills that you learn and carry those skills into the next first-person shooter. Skills that you learn in Rainbow Six will make you better at every single first-person shooter going forward, and that is just fact. Learn to hold objectives and angles as an anchor on an objective are skills that will help you in every first-person shooter coming forward. Guaranteed. Although iconic, the game is still not without its faults. As with every Best Picture award, Best Actor, Best Actress handed out over the past years, it's not without its own controversy. I have lost 2 friends and a brother to Rainbow Six Siege. Players I've played multiple games with, multiple first-person shooters with. My friends and I used to play Halo together. Me and my brother played Destiny religiously until I convinced them to buy Rainbow Six Siege. Well, I can tell you now they no longer play Rainbow Six Siege. The amount of time spent dead is never a great feeling when being introduced into a first-person shooter. Combine that with the sometimes way overestimated wait time for matchmaking, the time people actually spend shooting their weapons are maybe 10% out of the total time of a match. And that is being generous. How are you supposed to practice shooting when the first 2 hours of your session you're spent dead? Okay, they have a very bare bones terrorist hunt mode. Outside of maybe some cute warm-ups, terrorist hunt does not prepare you for online play in the slightest. If I was to recommend something to the devs, it'd be introduce a party mode, a mode where you can actually respawn and learn how to shoot a weapon and learn the map without always dying. Then there's casual. Oh my, casual and Rainbow Six Siege might be one of the worst named game modes in any game. Casual could be called Team Kill mode or Troll mode. Any of those names would work. In its current state, you're more likely to meet better people jumping straight into ranked mode as soon as you can. Trust me when I say casual is not the place to learn. So much so a dev recently said the same thing.
I can tell you about the intentions of the casual mode and the status or the reality of what it is today. And let's start with the reality. The reality is that today the casual playlist is actually harder than the ranking one. Why is this? Because you're pitching together people that have usually less experience in the game, less of the good instincts and reflexes like talking, communicating, etc. Together, and they are discovering the game with not enough help, not enough guidances, and overall this is the worst experience possible. I think today the best advice that you can give to a newcomer is bring your friend and play ranked. In ranked you'll find a population that is actually much more helpful, communicative, tries to play the game in the best way, and the matchmaking has criteria that's going to put you as a copper or bronze at the beginning.
Balance has been on point so far for Bear Battle. The introduction of the 2 new operators has been amazing, and honestly do not think there have been any nerfs to them since their introduction. Granted, we're about to get 2 more operators, with Maverick especially has me worried about the balancing going forward. It seems to me that Ubisoft and the devs are being very careful on test servers to make sure everything is okay for the live build. So this is a wait and see, but still I decided to put this in my disappointing action because of the apparent track record of introducing OP operators. Rainbow Six is not without its faults, just as Bad Company 2 is not without its own. Looking past the faults, you can see a game that will last a generation. We are living in a realm of esports championships and prize money. Do not think in 15 more years we won't look back at Rainbow Six Siege as the pioneer in making esports and gaming in general better for the entire first-person shooter genre.